Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New View podcast. My name is Mac.
And my name is Megan.
Come along with us as we dive into the world of competitive Irish dancing and beyond.
Sharing perspectives, developing community, and learning from each other.
We hope you enjoy.
We are so excited to be on episode 15 of the New View podcast, and we're even more excited to have an amazing guest on today, Madison Braaksma Gusmano, who honestly has one of the coolest stories in Irish dancing that I've heard. She's a Great Britain champion, North American champion. She has tons of professional ballet experience. She's really done it all. So we're super excited to chat with her today and just learn about her journey. And I think she'll have some great bits of inspiration that could help anyone at any point in their journey. So Madison, will you tell us just all about you, how you got started in dance, where you are now, anything you want to share?
Yes, of course. First of all, I wanted to say thank you guys for having me on today. I'm so excited to be here. So my whole dance journey kind of started when I was 2 or 3 years old. My mom put me into ballet. And I fell in love with it. Even at that young, I loved ballet. And so I continued to do it. And then when I got to be about 10 or 11, the ballet studio that I was at had a once a week Irish class happening. And that was like a satellite school of Cregan O'Brien. So my mom signed me up. I think she saw Riverdance or she saw something and was like, I really like Irish. I'm going to put Madison into it. So she put me into it and I fell in love with it. I love the competition aspect. And so I started competing, and probably about a year and a half later, I went to the actual main location of Cregan O'Brien and started training with Lisa Cregan at the time. And while I was doing this, I was still doing ballet 4 or 5 nights a week. And we were driving an hour away to go to Cregan O'Brien. So when I got to be about maybe 12, 13, the ballet schedules and the Irish schedules were starting to conflict a little bit. It was getting really difficult. So I ended up transferring to Drake School of Irish Dance at that point. And Carl Drake was amazing with letting me do the schedule that I needed to do. I think I was only able to take 1 class a week with my ballet schedule. It just got really crazy. And he was amazing with being like, you can do whatever you want, come once a week, whatever. So that was really good. But then the ballet schedule performances were always on the weekend, which is also when competitions are. So at that point, I was around 14, and I ended up starting to train privately with a teacher who danced with the Royal Ballet School. So I started doing ballet privates, allowing me to compete in Irish on the weekends. But then after I was doing that for a year, I ultimately had to choose if I wanted to pursue ballet or if I wanted to pursue Irish, because when you're still learning ballet at a young age, the techniques were kind of conflicting a little bit between ballet and Irish. So I ultimately chose to go on to ballet. And during that time, I did programs with the Royal Ballet School in London, Paris Opera Ballet School in Paris, American Ballet Theater in New York, Orlando Ballet. I did some programs with those schools. And then in ballet, it's really common to move away from home when you're young. So I think when I was about 16, maybe 17, my parents helped me move to Chicago. And I danced with A&A Ballet's youth company for a year. And then from there, I moved to Kansas City Ballet, and I joined their second company. And then I made my way down to Florida, and I joined a company in Palm Beach for about a year and a half. And I was an apprentice and then also in their corps de ballet. And at that point, COVID hit and everything shut down. And it was a disaster because I had no job. I wasn't making any money. So I ended up having to move back home to Georgia with my parents and take classes in my garage, which was not ideal. But when I was down in Palm Beach, I got connected with a school up in St. Lucie, Florida, which was about an hour away. And they, a couple of months into the pandemic, they were like, we're going to do in studio classes. We'll have small, like only 3 or 4 dancers at a time. And so I jumped on that because I was like, no more class in my garage. I can actually be in a ballet studio, like with live music. So I moved back down and I was just taking classes there. And then everything kind of opened back up. Things went back to normal. So I decided to audition again for like ballet companies. And I got like my dream job. I got offered a principal contract with a company, a small company in Orlando. And that's like every ballet dancer's dream. Like you've made it at that point. If you're a principal dancer, you're the top level. And I was so excited. I moved to Orlando, started dancing there. And, you know, being in a ballet company is great and wonderful, except you are like worked to death, barely paid. You don't really have enough to live off of. At that time, I also met my husband. And so we kind of decided, like, I had had a really long ballet career, and I was like, I think I need a break from this for a little bit. Like, just the uncertainty of, like, if I'm going to have a job, what's going to happen. So I stopped and we moved back up to Atlanta, Georgia to be near my family. But I was like dying inside. I was like, I need to like be in a studio doing something, some form of dance. So I contacted Carl Drake and I was like, hey, you probably don't remember me. It's been like over 10 years. I only took like once a week with you. And he remembered me immediately and was like, oh, yeah, you should come take class. I went and took class. Never expected that I was going to start competing again. Like, that wasn't really on my radar. And he was like, you should come and like compete. And so I did. And I started, like, I went back to him in October. And then that December, I danced at Aracta's and got second. And I was like, okay, this is a little weird, but okay, we'll go with it. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's been a whirlwind. I love that I'm back, but it's been crazy.
So, how long have you been back, I guess more seriously doing Irish dancing then? Like, how long has it been?
So October will be 2 years for me.
Okay, that's amazing. Wow, what a story. Like, truly, truly, what a story. And good for you for just a kind of I mean, there's so many things in that that I'm like, wow, good for you. I mean, just starting off with as a kid being like, no, I love both of these things and I'm going to find my way of doing both of them as long as I can. And then I also understand that at a certain point, sometimes you do just have to make a choice. And I think it's really cool. Like what your story sh kind of says to me is like, you're allowed to have different seasons of your life for different things. And I think that's so cool that you kind of lived out your ballet, sort of dreams and goals and everything. And then you were like, okay, like that's good for me and that. And it doesn't mean I have to lose my identity completely as a dancer if I don't want to. Like that can just evolve and back into something else or something that, I'm going to follow my nose. Like something's telling me, go like just see if you could take an Irish dance class again. And like that's so cool that it's kind of re-evolved into something that you never expected, but I would guess you're glad that it's involved to it, to
Yeah.
that. That's so cool. I'm sorry, I just am curious. Like, there's so many questions that were popping up as you were speaking about your story. Um, I guess first of all, just to rewind, I think you mentioned like there was certain technique things that didn't really translate between ballet and Irish dancing, and I'm wondering if you could A, speak to that a little bit more, like explain that, and B, were there things that you think helped you, whether it was like from ballet to Irish dancing or Irish dancing to ballet, like were there things that were good crossover?
Yeah, so I definitely think a couple of the main things are like in ballet, like you use a plie. And so like when you're jumping, you like will jump and then you land and you bend your knees in plie, which in Irish, everything is super straight. Like you land from a jump and you land on your toes. So that was like a really big thing. And the other thing was being super overcrossed, right? In Irish, we're like supposed to be really overcrossed. And in ballet, it was crossed, but not to that extreme. So going back and forth especially at a young age, that
Mhm.
was difficult for me to be like, oh, I'm in Irish. I have to like overcross. Okay, now I'm in ballet. You don't cross quite as much. We use a plie. Um, Definitely like as an adult and being older now, like I go back and forth all the time. I'm still taking ballet 2, 3 times a week and then going to Irish 4 nights a week. And it's very easy now because like I know the technique of ballet where when I was younger I was still learning it.
Right. Right. That's yeah, I just find that so fascinating and I'm kind of into this book right now. It's called The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin. I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but he was a like child prodigy chess player and then he ended up in the world of martial arts and whatever. You can read the book if you're interested, but his whole thing now is like this art of learning and translating like not even specific skills necessarily, but like how you learn from one discipline to another. Like, do you think that was an advantage for you going back and forth, like just learning to learn from different people or like, I don't know, the skill you developed of learning to learn? Like, do you think that's
Oh,
been decent?
yes, definitely. Even when I was younger, like going from being with that many different teachers and that like learning from that many different people and learning different styles of dance, that definitely helped shape me as a dancer because then when I got into the companies, you're dancing with multiple different teachers, you're dancing with multiple different choreographers. So you have to be able to adapt and learn from different people and not just be like, well, this is my one teacher and I only know how to operate with them. So that definitely helped me a ton when I went into companies.
Totally. That's so, yeah, I can imagine that being like a real asset. Um, I've another question. Another thought. Okay, sorry, they're just coming up for me. But in that same vein, I think tell me if this is you guys have noticed this as well. Um, I think sometimes, especially younger Irish dancers, can get frustrated when it's either like maybe you have multiple different teachers and they have, sometimes conflicting pieces of like feedback for you, or it might not even be that. It might just be like you get different pieces of feedback from different adjudicators at competitions and whatever. And I can totally relate to feeling frustrated with that a little bit because it's kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, like, do I do this or do I do this or whatever? And I think to your experience, Madison, like, when you're a professional dancer, like it's a little bit less about being, I guess, super attached to one certain right way of doing things. Like I think if you can just shift your mindset a little bit to like, I'm gonna take absolutely everything I can from whoever can give it to me, and then I'm gonna have to do my own work to integrate that in a way that works in my own body or that works for the piece that we're trying to do. I would imagine in ballet, that's like the primary goal. I think that that's like a really, really useful thing. And it's something that I definitely didn't do as a dancer until much later. Like I definitely struggled with that earlier on. And I don't know, like, can you guys relate to that feeling of frustration and or like being able to take feedback from multiple different sources and perspectives?
Well, I think like Madison, your story kind of just as I was listening to you, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but you've kind of been primed to be more adaptable than a lot of us are in Irish dance because so many of us like specialize right out the gate and we're like 4 years old and then 15, 20 years later, like we're still doing just that thing. And maybe we've gotten quite good at that. But because you were kind of specializing in a couple things and you gave both like a full effort and had periods where you were doing one more than the other, but still doing both, I'm sure that created just like general strength, even though you did mention like, oh, there were points where like the technique didn't really cross over, that was hard, but that kind of like challenge for your brain and your body to be doing that at such a young age, I would venture to guess you're probably a little bit better set up now that you're older in dancing because you have more perspective and experience and you're just primed to be like, okay, I can do that. Okay, I can take your feedback. Okay, I can work on this because you've had countless hours of doing that throughout your entire life. So, I mean, I'm sure it's incredibly tough to do both. I can't imagine, as someone who's only done one their whole life, to like dedicate that kind of time to both for periods. That's like extremely respectable, but so cool that it kind of has given you like those skills that we don't always get because I think a lot of us are like, oh no, I need to specialize in order to be good, which
Right.
I think to some extent, yeah, you have to be committed and all of that, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can cut off having like another passion or another form of dance or movement that you enjoy doing because more often than not, I would say it is highly beneficial, right?
Yes. I would say to that point as well, like, I think coming back to Irish, that's helped me so much because, I mean, the style of Irish now versus like when I danced when I was 14, like over 10 years ago, it's completely different. Like the style of everything. So I've had to work my tail off in the studio for hours. And I mean, I give full credit to my teachers for like sticking with me through this and like working with me because I'm sure they've wanted to pull their hair out multiple times with me coming back because they're like, she just can't get it. Um, but I think also part of that is like my determination from my younger, like when I was doing ballet and Irish and like trying to like figure out, okay, how am I going to do both of these? How am I going to, I'm going to fight for it.
Yeah, you wouldn't have that like tenacity and belief in yourself and like refusal to give up, even if other people are like, oh, this is frustrating. You're like, no, I can get this. It might just take time, but because you've had so many of those experiences, I don't know, you're very primed to like just be a wonderful candidate for doing it all.
Do you think, I'm curious, like, because you just said the style of Irish dancing has evolved so much since you were young and it's very different to what it was like back then. Like, do you think there's more parallels to ballet now style-wise or like less? Because I don't know, I as a dancer have noticed a lot more influence from people like Liam Costello and other like multidisciplinary dancers. Like I do think that there is a lot more of that infusion coming into Irish dancing, but I'm curious your perspective because you've lived it a lot more than I have, that overlap.
Yes, I would definitely say so. And I think definitely in the soft shoe aspect, it's a lot easier. It was a lot easier for me to transition into the soft shoe. The hard shoe is something that I have struggled with a lot is like getting all of the rhythm and the timing of that. So I feel like there is more influence from other types of dance coming into it. Um, but it still is different.
Yeah, for sure. Do you like do your marks reflect that? Like, do you tend to do better in your soft round than your
Oh,
hard
yes,
round?
100%. My soft shoe does very, very well.
You because you'd have those arches.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
That's
interesting. Madison, just based on like all of your experience in dancing, I'm always one to like ask people about passion and stuff like that. I love knowing what like fuels people. Would you say your passion for dancing, whether it's Irish or ballet, has kind of ebbed and flowed with you as you've gone from really pursuing ballet to more transitioning into kind of the Irish dance now in this part of your life? Or has it been a constant, like, I love it for these three reasons, and that's why I get up and do any form of dance every day? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I think for me, my passion has definitely been consistent. It's just like I want to be in the studio. I want to be moving my body, whether that's ballet or Irish. Like I've always wanted to be in the studio. And even when we have like we're on a break right now and I'm like, I need to be back in the studio, like dancing and doing something. Um, so for me it's stayed consistent where I've just like I want to be in the studio. I want to be performing.
Yeah, and you just love, I'm from what you're saying, I'm gathering that you just love that feeling, you know? And it's kind of hard to define what that feeling is because it's different for everyone, but you love the feeling in the studio, the feeling on stage, just every
Yeah.
part of like the dancing kind of process. So that's really cool. With that, what do you imagine or hope or see as your future like in dancing? I know with so much going on and having like a lot of talent in both Irish and ballet, I'm sure you have lots of options, but where do you kind of see yourself in your journey going?
So that's something I've actually thought a lot about recently. Um, I mean, I think I would love to get back into like the ballet scene a little bit, even if it's just, I'm hoping like this year I can do some Nutcracker guestings where I would come in as like the principal dancer and do like Sugar Plum in their Nutcracker. As far as Irish, um, I'm not exactly sure yet. I think I would love to be like a TCRG. It kind of scares me though, the whole process to get that exam. Um, but I do love being able to encourage younger students. Um, so I feel like I would love that. It's just a little bit of a scary process.
Yep, yep, can understand that perspective. But that's really cool, and I think that's it's not for everybody, but I think a lot of us do feel that sense of like duty, I guess, to pass along the tradition and pass along the the skills that we've developed over the course of doing this. And not only like the physical skills, but the mental skills and the life skills. And sorry, just to like do a little bit of a turn on the subject one more time, I just have to ask this is like, how is that different for you in terms of like, in Irish dancing, the goal is a lot more like competitive centered, like it's on, winning a thing or, you know, whatever, however you conceptualize that in your mind. But then whereas ballet, it's a little bit different in the sense of like, I get the impression that there is a competitive aspect in the sense of like when you're auditioning, you're competing for a role or like a position. But then it also shifts more to like a collective goal in the sense of you're all trying to like create this piece together. So I'm just curious, mentally, how are those experiences different or the same for you?
Yeah, so there definitely is. Obviously, Irish is very competitive, and you're like, oh, I'm going to this competition, I want to win or get the top five or whatever. In ballet, there definitely is a competition aspect because when a director comes in, you're fighting for that principal role. Even if you are the principal, you may not, if a choreographer comes in, they may not choose you to be the principal role in whatever they're choreographing. So there is a little bit of competition of you're like, okay, I want this person to like me. But at the end of the day in ballet, it's about performing. So it's about when you get on the stage, am I conveying a story to the audience? Am I, whether you're doing, Romeo and Juliet or you're doing a contemporary piece, if I'm doing Romeo and Juliet, am I giving the audience that story that I'm Juliet? Am I making them feel everything that Juliet felt?
Right. So okay, follow-up question to that. I think in ballet, and that seems like it's quite I don't want to say obvious, but like that is more clearly an objective. Is like you're telling a story with the dance. Like most of the time, like a ballet is a story that you're just telling through dancing. And I think in Irish dancing, like we don't really focus on that very much. Like it's a lot more focused on like sort of
I think our story is like being the best, that's like all you're trying to express, if I can interject there.
sure. And like that is one way of thinking about it, but I'm curious, like why is that? Like, why is that the only way? Well, and I don't think it is the only way that we can tell a story through Irish dancing. Like, obviously, there's shows in Irish dancing as well, and that brings in like a narrative aspect. But like, I would, I don't know. I think everybody has that capacity like within themselves. Like, they're gonna bring their own flavor, if nothing else, to a performance in competition. Like I think they can bring it in
Yeah.
competition. And I'm curious, like with your ballet background, like if you have any insight as to how dancers might start to do that more in their competitive Irish dancing. Like bring in, obviously you're not telling like a story, but like bring in more of a feeling, I guess, to their dancing.
Yeah, so I would say with that, it really comes down to I feel like as dancers, we need to like kind of reach down more inside of us and figure out why you love doing what you're doing. So like if I'm competing and I'm like, oh, I'm just competing to win, like you're not showing the judges why you love it. So for me, like when I go to do my soft shoe, like my soft shoe is my best dance. I love my soft shoe. I know like I'm up on my toes and I know that I can make it look super stylized. And so I think that shows when I'm on stage. And I think sometimes a lot of dancers miss that is when they get on stage, they're just thinking, oh, I have to win or oh, I have to get a recall. And they're missing that aspect of, no, why do you love this? Like, show what you love about it. If your rhythm is amazing, like, you need to like show that, be super confident and enjoy that time on the stage because ultimately you're only on the stage for 90 seconds. Like, really enjoy it.
Yeah. And so to sort of build on that, like, would you say being more in tune with the aspects that you're strong at in dancing and letting that sort of influence the energy and the feeling and the vibe that you bring to your performance when you're actually competing? Is that,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. That's really
I
cool.
gather kind of like through what you're saying, Madison, like your story is about kind of telling the audience what your strengths are and why you love dancing, and through these unique abilities, like this is my passion and all of that. And I think that's really cool. And people like you in dance who are multidisciplinary and like really have a ton of experience in both areas. And I think there's a growing population of those dancers in the Irish dance community, at least, that could become more of like the popular narrative in terms of, okay, I love dancing and of course I want to get a good result and all of that, but my story isn't just being the best, because oftentimes only one person can win and you have to
Right.
find other ways to make it enjoyable and long lasting and all of these great things. And I think the best way to do that is through your storytelling, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's really a really, really cool concept to take away from this conversation, and that really excites me. I think that's something that would be really cool to bring into Irish dancing more. And on that same topic, like Madison, we've been really loving asking this question of our guests is like, if you could change or add something to the world of competitive Irish dancing, what do you think that might be?
Maybe more like I think it would be cool if like part of competitions you got to do like almost like a workshop with the
Mm,
judges where they got to like see you and see how you worked and saw a little bit more of your personality within the competition. I think that would be really cool.
that's neat. I love that idea. That's really, really cool. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for this conversation. It's been really inspiring and it's just fun to get to chat with somebody who's got such a diverse and unique perspective um, on all things dancing. And we just like wish you all the best in your next step forward in the dancing world. I'm sure you're going to do awesome, cool things. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us in this episode of the New View podcast. We hope you enjoyed.
If you have any ideas about future guests we should interview or want to connect, you can find us on Instagram at newview.collective or email us at newviewcollective.mm@gmail.com.